School Finance 101, Funding of Public Schools. Budgeting. Preparing the budget. When you prepare the budget, it's important to determine the allotment and identify fixed and potential expenditures and involve all stakeholders. That is the most crucial thing to remember. Include cutbacks that might be beneficial and avoid continued debts. Also ensure that the budget is centered around an improvement plan and maintain the vision, and remember to set goals. Evaluation of the budget is important. Meeting once a month to evaluate the budget might be helpful. The budget must be adopted by the board no later than August 31st per TEA. And last, it's important to abide by the budget. Where do funds come from? Funding for Texas public schools come from three main sources. You have your local, state, and federal funds. Your local school district property taxes. The state funds include the property taxes, sales taxes, or income taxes. And once again, you have your federal funds. Education is the largest single budgetary component of state and local governments. In Texas, the local revenue is 45%. The state revenue is 35.9%, and the federal is 17.9%. The Foundation School Program, or the FSP. The FSP is a system that the state of Texas uses to finance its public schools. It constitutes for the majority of the funding received in public schools. The state and federal grant funds are not included in the FSP. It establishes the amount of state and local funding to school districts, and it is administered through TEA. It ensures that equal access to similar revenue per student at similar tax rate effort, considering all state and local revenues of districts after acknowledging all student and district cost differences. There are two main components of the FSP, the two tiers. There's the operations funding and the facility funding. Tax rates. The M&O and the INS tax rate. The maintenance and operations, the M&O tax rates, provides funds for the maintenance and operations cost of a school district. The interest and sinking fund, the INS, provides funds for payments on the debt that finances a district's facilities. ECISD, the M&O tax rate was $1.04, and the INS tax rate is 0.121. It comes out to a total tax rate of 1.161. The compressed tax rate, or the CTR. The CTR is to provide property tax relief. The Texas legislature established a compressed tax rate beginning with the 2006 tax year. For the 2009 tax year and subsequent years, a district CTR is the 2005 M&O tax rate multiplied by the state compression percentage, which is 0.6667. If, for example, a district had a 2005 M&O tax rate of 1.50, then its compressed tax rate would be $1. To receive funding related to revenue at the CTR, a district must adopt a tax rate equal to its CTR. Golden and copper pennies. The tax rate above compressed tax rate, or the CTR. Golden pennies. Golden pennies are the first 6 cents of tax effort a district assesses above its CTR. They are called golden because they are the pennies of tax effort for which a district is able to generate the highest level of supplemental funding. Copper pennies. Copper pennies are any cents of tax efforts a district assesses above its CTR plus 6 cents. They are called copper because they generate a lower level of supplemental funding than the golden pennies do. The operations funding, the Tier 1, is made up of several allotments, including those for basic education, special education, career and technical education, bilingual and ESL education, compensatory education, gifted and talented education, public education grants, transportation, and new instructional facilities. It also includes a high school allotment. The basic allotment is the basis of funding for most of the allotment making up a district's Tier 1 entitlement. The amount of the allotment depends on the CTR. The basic allotment amount and the number of students' average daily attendance, or ADA, are used to calculate a district's Tier 1 entitlement. The importance of student attendance. The average daily attendance, the ADA. The calculation of the number of students in ADA can be found by adding the number of students who are in attendance each day of the school year for the entire school year, and then dividing that number by the number of instructional days in the school year. ECISD's estimated ADA for 2014-2015 is shown on the screen. A breakdown of Tier 1 entitlement statewide for 2009-2010. Summing the allotment amounts to arrive at the Tier 1 entitlement. As you can see, regular is the majority of the Tier 1 entitlement. The basic allotment is the basis of funding for most of the allotment making up a district's Tier 1 entitlement. The amount of the basic allotment varies depending on a school's district CTR. The basic allotment amount and the number of students and average daily attendance are used to calculate a district's Tier 1 entitlement. Calculating basic allotment and ADA amounts for Tier 1 entitlement. How much it costs to educate students in that region of the state. Whether the school district is small or mid-sized and thus suffers economic hardships. The sparsity of the district's population. These are all factors that play into account on calculating the basic allotment and ADA amounts for Tier 1 entitlement. The operations funding, the Tier 2. It provides a guaranteed yield, a guaranteed level of funding to school districts to supplement the funding provided by Tier 1. It ensures that school districts generate a specified amount of state and local funds per student in WADA, weighted average daily attendance, for each cent of tax effort. The recapture 41 occurs when a district's tax rate above a set amount and must follow state law compliance. WADA, the weighted average daily attendance. Below is an example of how WADA is calculated. Example of varying school district wealth. Below you will see an example of varying school district wealth. The state assisted and facility funding. The facilities funding component of the SSP consists of the IFA, the Instructional Facilities Allotment, and the EDA, the Existing Debt Allotment Program. These programs assist school districts in funding facilities by equalizing INS tax efforts. What other FSP state and aid is available to school districts? There is the Available School Fund, the ASF, for each eligible student enrolled. It's made up of revenue generated by the state's fuel tax and by the Permanent School Fund. It's based on a district's prior year ADA. It serves as a method of finance for the FSP, the staff allotment, additional state aid for staff salary increases. How does TEA collect the data necessary to calculate FSP state aid and pay out that aid? They go by property value and tax rate information, pupil projections information, attendance information, charter school attendance estimate information, staff information. All data is submitted through the Public Education Information System, PEIMS, and the FSP system. The Summary of Finances, the SOF. It is a report that the TEA produces for each district and charter school describing funding elements and FSP state aid. The report includes information on the number of students in average daily attendance, ADA, and weighted average daily attendance, WADA, the number of students making up special student populations, property values, tax rates, and tax collections. How is state aid paid? Regular public schools, excluding charters, it's broken up into multiple payments made throughout the school year. The charter school system is a little bit different. Their school payments are broken down into 12 equal monthly payments. Below is a link to the ECISD 2012-2013 PEIMS report, which includes many important information. Below, you will find all the resources used in this PowerPoint.